It's Bimester time! Over the last 2 months, I played 7 MMORPGs. Well, MMORPG is highly debatable. One was a tiny multiplayer online RPG that basically turned into a single-player game. 2 of them were so early in development that they were still learning how to walk. So I guess for the actual purposes of this video, I'm really only reviewing 4 MMORPGs. Wow, someone really slacked this bimester. Alright, let's rank the best and the worst MMOs I played in June and July. Here's how these bimester reviews work. I play some games, I make some videos, and then I rank them based on a precise mix of your views, my complete personal bias, and entirely made-up criteria.
A show where everything's made up and the points don't matter. Yep, just like the police department in Colombia, the points don't matter. That's right, the points don't matter, just like a stripper's name. That's right, the points are just like any job you can get with a liberal arts degree. The points are like whatever you say after sex. That's right, they don't matter, just like a surveillance camera at the 99-cent store.
That's right. The criteria I use is like the word international in International House of Pancakes. They do not matter. These past 2 months, I played Book of Travels, Embers Adrift, Ethyrial, Guild Wars 2, Monsters and Memories, Pax Dei, Ruins of Tearyn. When I made the video on Book of Travels, it was firmly categorized as a tiny multiplayer online RPG. But the developers made the tough decision to sunset the official online servers on July 31st and transition the game into a standalone single-player offline experience. I genuinely think Book of Travels was a lovely, unique game, and I completely respect Might and Delight's decision to preserve it this way rather than letting it vanish into the void. I'm actually really looking forward to jumping back in as a solo player. But since this is specifically an MMO ranking list, it wouldn't make sense to rank it against the remaining multiplayer games. So we're going to set it aside as an honorable single-player mention. And while we're talking about disqualifications, I also spent some time in early testing for 2 upcoming titles, Ruins of Tearyn and Ethyrial. Now, both of these games are intended to become proper MMORPGs when they grow up, but right now, they're still in their infancy. Judging early alpha playtests against fully realized live service games probably isn't fair to the developers or the games themselves. So with those 3 sidelined, here's what we're left with. At the time of this recording, if I used view totals, here are the viewer rankings of the videos I made during this bimester. Holy landslide, Guild Wars 2. That community operates on the exact same logic as a 5-year-old considering Frozen merch. You put Elsa's face on a can of pinto beans, and a 5-year-old will look you dead in the eye and say, "I love beans." The Guild Wars 2 community gives off that exact same energy. If you put Guild Wars 2 in the title of a video, suddenly 3,000 people are like, "I'll watch that video." And hey, as a creator looking at those analytics, I like beans too. Anyway, on to the rankings. Sliding firmly into the number 4 slot is Pax Dei. The game was already sitting at number 4 because I struggled with its lack of structure, early combat, and dependence on players creating nearly all of the meaningful activity. I was still open to revisiting it because I know these qualities are exactly what some sandbox players love. But after putting my thoughts out there, the community response was surprisingly, hostile? Now look, I don't expect everyone to agree with my reviews. That would be boring. And the thoughtful disagreements are genuinely interesting. But enough of the response became personal, and it completely extinguished my enthusiasm to return to that game. Unfortunately, Pax Dei will now forever be known as the game that allowed me to discover where YouTube hides the hate. Basically, enough of the dialogue became deeply personal that it utterly doused my enthusiasm to revisit the game. Community matters in an MMO. It doesn't have to agree with me. Yeah, I'm looking at you, comment section. You're a bubbling cauldron of misplaced rage. But the atmosphere directly dictates whether anyone actually wants to spend time there. Disagree with my critique all you like, but the moment you make it personal, you've missed the point entirely. That's all I'll say about that. Let's move on to my 3 favorite games at the moment. My number 3 is your number 4, Embers Adrift. There is just something I love about Embers Adrift. However, I've reached a point where I have to be thoughtful about what I choose to play. I don't have enough time to play all the games, and I hyper-focus on the games I do enjoy. My subscription is about to come up for renewal, and I am genuinely on the fence whether to hand over my credit card. Because again, the game fundamentally appeals to me. I thoroughly enjoy being slightly abused by punishing old-school mechanics. Look at me, game developers of the world. Strip away my minimap, deny me fast travel, and I will still play your game. The trouble is, the world feels completely empty. Now, in a game like Project Gorgon, an empty world is perfectly fine because the mechanics are solo-friendly. There is more than enough for me to do on my own that I don't spend my evenings weeping into a cold mug of tea longing for a party. But in Embers Adrift, there simply isn't enough content to do by yourself, and there aren't enough players at my level to support the relentless grouping demands. I've actually recorded another video on Embers, and I'll see how I feel after I've tackled the editing process. But I won't pretend otherwise. Deciding whether to let this subscription lapse is going to be genuinely difficult. The number 1 and number 2 slots are no joke this bimester. Obviously by views, Guild Wars 2 blew away my other content. But as time has passed, I've had a moment to reflect on that particular boon. I happened to post my video exactly 3 days before ArenaNet dropped the news that Guild Wars 3 was on the horizon. My snarky little take, which I stand by, got swept up in the monstrous algorithm of millions of players frantically searching for anything related to the sequel. There's an old saying, luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity. I honestly think that is exactly what happened here. If I had posted that video at any other time, the opportunity for success simply would not have been there. And while I do still maintain that the Guild Wars 2 community is a bunch of bean-eating Elsa lovers, 33,000 views cannot make a game my personal number 1. All this is to say that I am ranking Guild Wars 2 at number 2 this bimester. Now, I do question the popularity of my own videos. I still sort of hold this persistent, stubborn belief that old games simply do not bring in the views, which I realize at 33,000 views is like standing in the middle of a swimming pool, screaming at the top of my lungs that I am bone dry. If I took that first opportunistic Guild Wars 2 video out of the equation entirely, the view gap between Guild Wars 2 and Monsters and Memories would be much closer. I do genuinely enjoy the game, but when I sit down for a play session, it is rarely the one that immediately calls out to me. I have to actively psych myself up to play Guild Wars 2 because I know deep in my soul there's going to be sensory overload. I know there are going to be 1,000 glowing, pulsating things popping up on my screen that I don't understand, I don't recognize, and frankly, I don't want. Guild Wars 2 is not just a game, it's a full-scale audio-visual event. God damn, it is hella fun. The graphics are absolutely stunning, and the community makes you fall in love with the human race. Ew, I just said that. But it requires a slightly higher level of mental preparation on my part to be willing to engage in the chaos. It's the gaming equivalent of walking straight into a crowded nightclub at 2 a.m. on a work night, spectacularly loud, deeply disorienting, and requiring a level of spiritual fortitude I don't possess on a Tuesday. And so, As your keen powers of deduction have no doubt already uncovered, my number 1 slot is your number 2. Once again, I'm handing the crown, this bimester, to Monsters and Memories. Now, you would be entirely right to stare at me through your monitors and question my sanity. This is a game that, and I say this with maximum heart-wrenching gravity, literally killed my bear. The entire reason I chose to play a druid in the first place. This game is a game that essentially banned me from playing Bard, my absolute favorite D&D class. One would assume the developers are hell-bent on getting me to walk away from their program entirely. But here I am, logging in every single week and churning out video after video like a captive in a digital sweatshop. So why on earth does it appeal to me? Well, it certainly isn't the graphics. I mean, I do find them very charming, and the color palette is genuinely calming. But think about it. It's like how fast food chains make their logos orange to stimulate your appetite. There has to be some powerful, sinister psychological manipulation going on with Monsters and Memories and its obsession with muted, earthy browns. In color psychology, these shades influence your mood by evoking feelings of warmth, reliability, honesty, and security. So perhaps that's it. Maybe I'm simply being hypnotized by virtual beige, because I really do feel those things when I play. But ultimately, stripped of all color theory, it comes down to one thing. I have a solid, dedicated peer group. It's like having real friends. Now look at me, I'm far too socially awkward to navigate the terrifying minefield of actual real-world human friendship. But I have curated a lovely group of human beings who share my exact, hyper-specific interest in this game. Having a static playgroup changes everything. I don't have that in other games. Though I will grant the game this. It gives me plenty to obsess over when my group is offline. I find their trade skill system intensely enjoyable because your character is not forced to choose a limited set of professions. One character can eventually pursue every single one. I am endlessly entertained by the crafting activities. It's a glorious solitary rabbit hole that I can fall down completely independent of other people. So if you are considering diving into Monsters and Memories come early access, take it from someone currently trapped in its brown, reliable clutches. Find yourself a core group of people to hang out with and hurl yourself into the crafting. Because trust me, that brown wallpaper only gets you so far. Until next time, my friends, keep exploring, and I'll see you in the next world.